Revelation. So, get your Bibles out. Turn to the last book of the Bible. First chapter, first verse. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who testifies to everything he saw. That is the word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. Blessed is the one who reads the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. Now we talk about the Bible as a book, and we talk about the writings in the Bible as books, but both of those designations are a little bit misleading. The Bible is not a book per se, but rather a collection of books, and in those collections, we say books are various different kinds of writings. Some are letters, some are prophecies, some are historical documents, some are wisdom literature. There's all kinds of different types of literature spread out over different cultures over thousands of years. And one of those types is prophecy. Revelation says it's prophecy, and more than just prophecy, it is a prophetic letter. He says the next verse 4, John, to the 7 churches in the province of Asia, grace and peace to you from him who is and who was and who is to come, and from the 7 spirits before his throne, and Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. That's the introduction to a letter. And so you're reading a letter, a prophetic letter. It's a message that Jesus has for some churches in Asia Minor that he's delivering through the Apostle John. Now, John, this is hometown for him. These churches are where he is moved to after the times of Jesus, and he has lived in that area for some time. By now, John is an old man, extremely old. In a day when people very seldom saw 60, John is pushing 80. He is the last of the apostles. Peter, Paul, all the rest have been gone for several years. And several of them had lived in Asia Minor as well. Even in Ephesus, where John currently calls his home. Mary, the mother of Jesus, even had resided there for a while. And so John is writing a letter back to the folks back home from his island exile on Patmos. John is still preaching. He still has a little bit of that son of thunder in him, and that's why he's in exile. Evidently enough for that son of thunder that he had caught the attention of the Roman government, and because of that, they've exiled him from his home and relocated him, we'll say, to a community on the island of Patmos. It's not a long way from Ephesus, but it's an island community out in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and so John is cut off from his home, from his church family, from his friends, and everything in Ephesus. The recipients of the letter, as we said, are these 7 congregations in Asia Minor. Maybe it's meant to be the entire region. We'll get into that later, but definitely these 7 congregations. It's sometime in the late 70s, maybe even about 79 AD. And at this time, the church is very strong in the Asia Minor region. At least socially, it's strong. But these congregations are going to be put through the ringer. They're getting ready to go through it. The Roman boot is getting ready to drop hard on them. And they're going to have to battle for their very survival as Rome unloads. And so we have this letter to them that Jesus gives to John to give to them about what must soon take place. Revelation is a prophetic letter. However, as you start reading this letter, you're you're going to realize it's not like any letter you've ever written, I'm sure. The letter is written in a form of literature that we call apocalyptic writing. It's the Greek word apocalypto. That's the first word of the book is the apocalypse, the revelation. We don't have much apocalyptic writing today. Maybe some books get close, and some movies use apocalyptic type techniques, but we really don't have much apocalyptic writing. But the Jews were big fans of apocalyptic writing, particularly in times of national stress and struggle. And so you'll find it interwoven throughout several books in the Old Testament, even the Gospels a little bit. The book of Daniel in the Old Testament has quite a bit of it. And apocalyptic literature is just different. Now read this depiction of Jesus that begins down in verse 12. Okay? I turned around to see the voice of who was speaking to me, and when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like a son of man, dressed in a robe, reaching down to his feet with a golden sash around his chest. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze and glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a sharp, double-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in all of its brilliance. Now, as you read through, it's Jesus. But do you think Jesus looked like this as he was walking around Galilee? Sword coming out of his mouth, white hair, feet of bronze. You think he looked like that? No, I don't. He didn't. He didn't. This is not what Jesus looked like when he was on earth. But yet the text leaves you no doubt that this is Jesus. You see, these images of Jesus in Revelation are not just there to tell you who it is, but to tell you something about him. They are to give you ideas. Apocalyptic writing uses visions and symbols to convey a message and to convey feelings about a message. If some night this week an angel came to you with a vision, and in that vision you saw a great bird approaching, then you realize it's 2 birds pulling a sleigh, and they come and they land at your house. And as they land at your house in that sleigh, a jolly old man dressed in red jumps out with a present wrapped in a pink blanket. And then as he hands you the present that's wrapped up in this pink blanket, you realize that the birds that were pulling the sleigh are storks. What is God telling you? What are you getting for Christmas? Now see, you understand that message because you understood all the symbols. Or imagine you see a map of the nation covered in layers upon layers of the coronavirus. But then a man puts incense on an altar in Kansas, and the smoke drifts up to a huge lion who roars mightily, and all the virus is pushed into the sea. What do you know? What do you know about this pandemic that we've been experiencing? Let me give you a third one. What if you're at a huge stadium and it's 100 yards long and it's filled with the coronavirus? But then the wind comes in and it blows it all away and leaves behind 22 eggs on the field. If you're an Ole Miss fan or a Mississippi State fan, what does that mean? Yeah, you know. Stadium, 100 yards, 22, which is 11 twice. Eggs, yeah, you can buy your tickets. The Egg Bowl is going to happen this year. So the coronavirus is not going to cancel the Egg Bowl. The battle is on. And see, you know that because you understand all the images. Well, see, Revelation and apocalyptic literature is written that way. It's written based upon these symbols, these images. And that's what separates this letter from other letters in the New Testament. It's a letter, just like Romans, 1 Corinthians, Galatians, and it's revealing the will of God for a certain people in their particular circumstances, and then gives us insights into our circumstances as well. What separates this letter of Revelation from the others is that it's encoded in these symbols and images. And to understand it, you have to know what the symbols mean. So the question then becomes, how do you know what the symbols mean? There's no key provided. No international directory of symbolic images. How in the world can you figure out what these symbols mean? And it's important to note, not what they mean to us, but what did they mean to the people then? Because these images can change over time. Things, they may not have the same connotations now and then. See, it's not what we can make the image out to mean, or how the image makes sense to us. Because we can configure them to mean lots of things, and we can just about can configure them to mean whatever we want. But we can't do that and then turn around and say that's what John was talking about. Just because we figure out a configuration wherein the numbers 666 equal Adolf Hitler or Ronald Reagan or Barack Obama or John Lennon, it doesn't mean that that's what John was referring to. To determine what the image means in Revelation, we have to ask, what would it have meant to John? Or at least, what would it have meant to the 7 churches to whom the letter is addressed? Because this is their letter. It may communicate a lot to us and to other people, but it has to communicate to them. And the first audience, the primary audience, are these 7 churches at Revelation. We can create all kind of messages with all kinds of meanings, and we can just kind of pick things out of the air for all these symbols. But you can't say that's what the letter says. To determine what the letter says, you have to determine what it meant to the people to whom it was written. But that only moves us back one more. Now people say, but how do we do that? How do we get inside what they would have thought about all these images? Well, fortunately, we have a huge help. The Old Testament. Most of the symbols in Revelation are also used in the Old Testament. Now, I'm not sure if Jesus is leaning on the Old Testament writings for this bank of images, or if maybe it's just that both Old Testament and New Testament Revelation all are sharing from this common stockpile of images that people had in their minds in the day. I don't know which one it is, but either way, when we're stuck, we can almost always look back to the Old Testament and understand. We can understand what this image is about. One important note, it'll come up over and over as we go through. That is, it's important that we be consistent. We have to treat the images as symbols. There's lots of temptation, a lot of pressure, and we seem to incline to want to bail out of that and treat an image here or there as being a literal thing. When it fits our ambitions or our imaginations, we may want to treat something as literal rather than symbolic. But we have to avoid that. We can't do that. This is apocalyptic literature, and the key is to listen to the text, not work it. Let it say what it says in the way that it says it. And that's in images. Chapter 1, verse 19. Write therefore what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later. The mystery of the 7 stars that you saw on my right hand and the 7 golden lampstands is this. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. Every once in a while we get a break. Every once in a while the letter says, this is the symbol for this. The lampstands, the stars. He tells us here. The dragon in chapter 12, the city in chapter 22. It tells us what they are, and so we're helped because sometimes the text interprets them for us, but a lot of times we have to dig in. Jesus says, John, write what you've seen, what he's just seen, what he's getting ready to see, and what's to come. And so I hope you will join us. We'll take a quick run through the personal notes to each of the churches, and then following lessons we'll pick up the vision of what is to come from chapter 4. I hope that you're beginning to get a sense that you can understand this book. It's a little bit of a challenge because these are not our symbols. This is not the way we tend to write things, but you can understand it. You can understand it. And so I hope that you're looking forward to the rest of our study together.